Oh, no, I tried to do a funny, but I guess it didn't work.
I mean, you've done this before with the Batman thing.
Didn't work there. Didn't work then. But anyways, guys, welcome back to another episode of Geek Centurions. This time, we are going to be talking about a very dreaded thing. You're breathing a lot.
Right.
Huh? You're like doing that a lot.
I guess.
Anyways, we're back to talk about basically a review. I wouldn't say a review. A discussion about the first episode of the new Halo TV series that just came out, and discussing how that turned out. If you haven't noticed, we're both Halo fans. I got the Outpost Discovery shirt because they came over here in Houston one time. We both had fun. We met the voice actors. I got a helmet over there signed by both Cortana and Chief themselves.
Yeah, it was a fun experience. And yes, we are huge Halo fans. And
I think you are more than I am.
I am more than you are.
You've read the books.
I've delved deep into the Halo lore, so I think
not that deep.
Well, not that super deep. I eventually pulled myself out because eventually I was like, I don't need to read all these books, dude. But yeah,
I got things to do. I can't be reading all the time.
Yeah, and so yeah, this was a long-awaited journey for this TV show because this was announced back in 2013 when they announced the Xbox One.
And even further, if you think about the whole Peter Jackson thing.
Peter Jackson and then Neil Blomkamp, right?
Yeah, Blankman, yes.
Yeah, Neil Blomkamp. With them wanting to make a Halo film, and that never really turned out, except for like the short that they did, right?
Yeah, that one short, and that was really just it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean that's basically all we can say really about the development of that. We don't know much about it, but this time it's Spielberg, so there's at least some money into it.
Yeah, he was producing it, and I think I remember at one point they were gonna put it on Showtime, but now it's on Paramount Plus. I mean, to be fair, it does still say it's like a Showtime production or whatever. Yeah. So I assume once it does its run through Paramount Plus or whatever, it'll like show up on Showtime. If you're, I don't know. But yeah, it's definitely been an interesting journey with that show because most of its development, people just didn't know what the hell was going on with this show.
Like, we didn't know what it was about.
Yeah, we didn't know what it was about. We heard like some characters and stuff. And it's like, is this gonna be about the Master Chief? Is he gonna be like a background character and it's gonna be focusing on Marines and stuff?
Sort of kind of like how they did with Forward Unto Dawn.
A little bit, yeah. So yeah, it's just all kinds of long awaited, and honestly, it felt like it was a bit of a development hell at one point.
Mm-hmm.
But no, nearly 10 years after it's been announced, we finally get the first episode.
Where do we start?
Yeah, because there's been lots of mixed opinions about this first episode. And I think there's probably been like some reviewers they'll watch at least the first two. And yeah.
A lot of people say that the second episode saves the first. Or like, it makes the first episode more enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting, to say the least. Aside from that, do you want to talk about the elephant in the room that came out when the show was gearing up to premiere about the showrunners?
Yeah, it's definitely one of the big elephants in the room. There is I think the second one, that's sort of a major one, is that it's not canon, or rather, it's. So, like I was saying, it's not canon, or rather, it's inspired by the Halo games. It's not. It's its own sort of thing. Yeah, like they're calling it the Silver Timeline or whatever.
Wait, it's called the Silver. Wait, what?
Or like the Silver Continuity or something. I remember that's what the head of 343. I forget her name.
Kiki Wolf.
No.
Is that her? No, she's not there anymore.
That's not her. It's a different lady. I might look it up, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, like
When Kiki left, she had a badass name.
well, that's the only reason why you remember her.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's sort of the take that they're going with, that its own continuity.
So is that the reason why in the show the team, because like in the lore, they're known as Blue Team. It's Chief, Linda, Kelly, and Fred.
Yes.
And in this one, it's Chief, random dude, random chick, random chick.
Yeah, but no, they have names, and I think there's at least one of them. I'll double check, but he is based off of a character that is in the Halo series. He like, you know, who's a Spartan, I believe. His name's Soren, but yeah, no. By the way, it's Bonnie Ross is her name.
That's what her name. Yeah, I knew her. I just couldn't remember her name.
Yeah. But no, that's I think that's kind of the reason, because instead of Blue Team, it's Silver Team.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's why it's called a silver continuity.
yeah. It's a very interesting. I guess like I understand kind of why they did it, because they do mention like they just wanted to give the showrunners and stuff sort of the freedom to do what they want with the Halo series, but at the same time, like,
Still adhere to some sort of canon.
yeah, like not have it be like super like crazy and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So I guess that's one of the elephants. Technically there's three, considering there's also another one.
Yeah, and the second one, I think the one you were mentioning, is that a article came out where it talks about the showrunners for like the first season,
Mm-hmm.
mentioning how they did not play any of the Halo games while making the show at all.
And cue the angry nerds.
Yeah, cue all the angry fanboys, and I think I remember seeing that quote and like reading into it, and I was just like, yeah, I get why some people are a bit upset with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't get me, like, it's like if someone, like, I brought this up to you, where it's like, how would you react if like if someone was making a Batman movie, but they said they didn't read a Batman comic?
It was our response to Tim Burton.
Yeah, because that did happen with Tim Burton. But I feel like with him, it was very much like he got the idea of Batman, right? Even if he didn't read the comics.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I guess the real question was, like, can this show capture the feel of Halo?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know because they mentioned, like, we talked about the lore stuff more, and, like, looking into the lore rather than just reading or rather playing the games and stuff, which is, like, I guess fair enough on that front. However, it's just, like, there are, like, certain elements that I would very much...
You would prefer them to look at the games.
Yeah, like, I feel like it is it benefits you rather than, like...
It limits you.
Limits you, right? Like, it's not a waste of time to just look at the games. Is probably what my stance would be.
Yeah.
Because it's the main medium of how people interact with the Halo series.
Yeah.
So...
And you want them to have that feel, right?
Yeah.
To capture that feel. And I'm not saying there isn't that level of feel in this, but man, it's really noticeable when it's made by someone who's never touched the game. We'll get into those moments. Because, like, I mean, for me, one of the best things about Halo, aside from the multiplayer, was the story, right? Halo 1 was a very, like, straightforward story. Halo 2 was this multi-layered story about the Covenant and their side of the war, and, you know, stuff with the Arbiter, and sort of like his, you know, realization of like his the big lie for him, right?
Yeah.
And then Halo 3 is a conclusion. It's a good conclusion. And then because we're basically talking about the Bungie era, right?
Yeah.
Then you got like ODST, which was like this cool like noir take, and you know, some people might not have liked it, or you know, might not have been that into it, but it has its fans. It also has like one of the best soundtracks in the game.
Yeah.
and then you got Reach, which I feel like people have come to like appreciate more nowadays. Consider the story wise, right?
Yeah,
Because I remember a lot back then. They're like, the story was okay, but then now that it's like game on PC is like, no, the story's actually really good.
yeah, I would probably say more than anything. Maybe like it was more sort of like people thought it was going to be more of like a take on the Fall of Reach book
Mm-hmm.
that came out that serves as a sort of a prequel to the Halo games. But it was more like okay, this is just a this is, I mean, it's still like presets the Halo 1, but it's its own sort of beast.
Yeah.
And I remember most people being, at least, it was more of the multiplayer that kind of left not necessarily a bad taste in the mouth, but it was like things to come for the Halo series because it introduced a lot of mechanics that people weren't or were going to be very divided on, like sprint, armor abilities, and stuff like that. But yeah, no, there is like, Halo has been through a lot of stuff with Bungie,
And there's been through a lot of stuff with
343,
yeah.
the Halo 4 and Halo 5, and Infinite coming out. I think has at least tempered some of the
fans, yeah,
fans a little bit in terms of their reaction to 343 and how they handled the series so far. But let's get a bit more on track with the show.
Yeah.
Because the show is definitely interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to sum it up, okay, just from this first episode, right? It starts off really, really strong. Like, it's just this because a lot of people. So I talked about this with some of my coworkers, right? They were wondering about the show. I told them I saw it, and then I told them how my thoughts are. And as I was talking to them, I realized how the show introduced a lot of the stuff that we know as fans that people don't know. So we're introducing insurrectionists, right? And that's a storyline that's mostly known from like the other stuff, like books and shit.
Mm-hmm.
If you play the games, you don't know who the fuck these insurrectionists is. You don't know what the politics are in the Halo universe.
Yeah, because it's mainly centered on Master Chief and fighting the Covenant. And in the lore, before the Covenant show up, the Spartans were originally built to suppress this...
they were super cops.
Essentially, they were going to be used to suppress the insurrectionist movement, which is a big sort of rebel movement who like want freedom from the UNSC. From it was mainly sort of an outer rim thing.
Yeah,
for the planets.
just imagine like if like everything past the asteroid belt was colonized, and they're like, you know what, fuck the Earth, we want to do our own thing.
Yeah, that's more or less how they were. It's I think a parallel would be like something similar to what happens in Star Wars, I guess.
Yeah.
With the separatists kind of thing. But here it's definitely more like these guys just want, they don't really feel like the UNSC does a lot for them, so just like, screw that, we're gonna do our own thing. And the UNSC is like this huge, big
military complex
government that just like needs to control everything to make sure we're all safe or whatever. It definitely gets a bit more complex in the books and stuff, and obviously like in the lore,
which by the way, I'm gonna say this right now, you're gonna hear a lot of that from us right now.
Yeah, because I mean this is probably gonna be the one thing that like the show does that actually keeps to how it is in standard Halo lore, is that when the Covenant arrives, more or less the insurrectionists stop being a thing, simply because the Covenant doesn't really give a shit. They just want to kill all humans.
And there's a reason why they want to kill all humans.
Yeah, I mean, there's a good reason why they want to kill all humans. And
I'm just saying, I'm not saying killing all humans isn't like a noble cause, but
I mean, I wouldn't say it's a noble cause. I mean, I'm human. I don't want my entire species to be eradicated.
I don't know, Jay.
Don't be one of those hippies that's like, the Earth is better off without us kind of thing. All right, screw you. We can help the Earth. But regardless of that, uh, you know, it's very much like hey, let's just stop fighting each other because we have a huge existential crisis of aliens that want to kill us all. So let's help each other out. And there's definitely hints of this in the show.
Yes, because I mean, like I said, it starts off with the insurrectionists because they are attacked by the Covenant, and it's clearly indicated this isn't the first time.
Well, rather, this isn't the first time this has happened to an outer rim planet, but this is definitely the first time these insurrectionists have faced off with the Covenant, because they're just like, what the hell are these things? Oh, Jesus Christ, the plasma's killing me.
Yeah, and like there's even one guy's like, oh god, I thought it was a propaganda.
Yeah, I thought it was all bullshit by the UNSC. It's real.
Yeah, well, and it makes sense because even in the lore, there were people who were like didn't believe that the Covenant was a thing, and like I'm just gonna throw this one out there in the Four Realms of Dawn miniseries.
Yeah.
Remember there was a character who like likes to like hack his way into shit.
Yeah.
And he found and he hacked through some cameras and saw some insurrectionists running from something, and he also saw like, wait, there's like UNSC people. What's going on?
Yeah,
we're supposed to be fighting them, and it's like, what's going on? But you as the player, well, you as someone who's known the games, you're like, oh, they're running from the Covenant.
Yeah.
And that's when also you get a first glimpse of a Spartan. But aside from that,
yeah.
But like that's something I really did enjoy, the fact that they started off also in showing off how violent the Covenant are.
Yeah.
They don't give a fuck. Like, Jesus Christ, there are moments I'm like, wow, this is some splatter.
Yeah. They leave no, like, I'll just say this, there's only one character that from the insurrectionist camp that survives the Covenant attack. That's how brutal it gets, because literally everyone gets murked.
Oh no, there's a moment where like it's like shooting a fish in a barrel moment.
Yeah, there's definitely that. Yeah, but but so far, at least this show. I mean, this is like the moment where like Master Chief and the Silver Team show up, and we get to see sort of the Spartans in action and stuff. Yeah, and it's very cool.
It's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
It's cool. I think we might differentiate on this, but I like the fact that we use a first person moment.
I'm indifferent to it.
Yeah,
I'm just because it just feels like I get it's a first person shooter, so I mean
we're gonna make some nods.
Yeah, like it feels like what they did in the Doom movie.
Yeah,
where they had just that whole first person sequence
with the Rock.
With the Rock, yeah. So I mean, it's whatever.
Yeah,
I don't really necessarily care.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, you're right. And essentially, later on in the story, we get introduced to like I guess, what if you didn't know what it already was? If you're not a fan, I mean, we both know what it is. It's forerunner technology.
Yeah,
and stuff happens, and this is what I'm saying. Like, if you don't know, and granted, I think that's kind of the point of it. But if you know the lore like you and I know, then you know what's going down. And especially like with all the way they talk about stuff, it's like, oh, okay, these guys like they took notes on the lore, and they clearly know what they're talking about, and they're changing it in ways I don't know how to feel about. Right?
Yeah.
Because like Master Chief finds the foreigner artifact, stuff happens to him, and it just snowballs effect into something else. But essentially, after that, we get sort of a note on like who the Covenant. Well, not who the Covenant are, but the first big like questionable change they made, which is like introducing this female character female human into the Covenant. Like, she has a role in the Covenant. I think they call her Chosen or something like that.
Yeah, like, and it's implied, at least in this first episode, that she sort of knew about this Forerunner artifact. So I don't know if it's gonna be like this build up to like, oh, she has like psychic powers or some weird stuff like that. Which is definitely not a Halo thing at all.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, but yeah, it is definitely probably the first of many interesting directions they wish to go, because in the lore, the Covenant, there are no humans that sort of join up with the Covenant, because the Covenant is essentially this religious, fanatical group of aliens that believe that the Forerunner technology is stuff behind, the Forerunners were gods, and that they left these technologies behind. The Halo rings themselves will essentially help them get to their great journey, which is like...
it's mass suicide.
I mean...
Well, they don't know it's mass suicide.
Yeah, because the Halo ring essentially kills all sentient life within the radius of it. So... yeah, their whole great journey would eventually lead them to commit mass suicide. So that's why I say it's like a religious fanatical cult, you know? And they sort of see humans as sort of like an affront to their religion in some ways. And that's why they sort of wage a war against humanity. So, yeah, it is super weird that... we have a human character that seems to have been raised by the Covenant in some way.
Yeah.
Granted, they do mention that like they're sort of kind of using her as like, oh, you must study these stories from humanity or whatever to help us learn about humans and therefore destroy them or whatever.
Which is weird. Okay.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
And granted, I'm willing to accept it because they do introduce a character who is known in this in the universe. He goes by Mercy, but for the fans, he's the Prophet of Mercy.
Yeah, because in the games, the Covenant are ruled by
the Prophets.
Yeah, the Prophets. They have I guess a technical name, their species, but they're mostly known as the Prophets. And they are, the main leaders. There's like 3 of them, like the head honchos: the Prophet of Mercy, the Prophet of Regret, and the Prophet of Truth.
And they all essentially, look after the Covenant. And
yeah, they lead them. They are essentially the, they make sort of the big decisions a lot of the times. So, and the Prophet of Mercy, in the lore, has definitely done some interesting things. In Halo Wars, he sort of like is sort of like one of the characters that like sort of finds kind of sort of kickstarts the plot a little bit in that game. Obviously, in Halo 2, we see him again, and he's like sort of the one that like.
Wait, was it Mercy or Regret? I'm trying to remember now.
No, I'm pretty sure the Prophet of
There was the Prophet of Regret was the one. It was Mercy was the one who invaded Earth.
I'm pretty sure.
Well, anyways, to your point, it's like if there might be a way they can like work it in, but we don't know. See, because that's what I'm saying, like, right? Anyways,
right, it's the Prophet of Regret that does that stuff. Prophet of Mercy is the he's like one of the old guys.
He's the one that gets murked by the flood.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, okay. My brain needed to remember that.
You know what? We want to know why I remember that? Because of the lines. Regret. What does it mean? Dear humanity.
Yeah, we regret coming to Earth. We regret being alien bastards. And we most certainly regret that the Or just blew
Blew
up
a raggedy ass fleet. Hoorah!
Yeah, Sergeant Johnson, great character.
Great character. He's not gonna be in the show, sadly.
Probably not. But yeah. More to the point, it's not like the prophets have done questionable things in the lore. It's probably the end point of our conversation. Because the Prophet of Regret, yeah, he has done some pretty interesting things. The Prophet of Truth,
he might know what the Halo rings actually do.
Yeah, he more or less kind of understands. Like, there's a reason why they wage a war against the humans, and it's definitely not because they're a affront to their religion. It's kind of funny that the prophets themselves all have like their namesakes are like contradictions to how they act.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, getting back to the show.
It's just weird.
It's just super weird. I don't know where they're gonna take this.
Hopefully it makes sense.
Hopefully. I personally really seriously hope it's not just the writers being like, we can't just have these CGI aliens just talk to themselves. We need at least a human to for the audience to understand and be an audience surrogate in trying to understand what the Covenant is all about. Even though I feel like you could easily, I don't know, add a character like the Arbiter,
who we have not seen.
I mean, yeah. To be fair, considering the lore of this show, it definitely
it might not be the Arbiter we know from Halo 2.
Yeah,
because the Arbiter is a title and it's passed down to certain elites. Usually, they're the ones tasked with suicide missions.
I mean, yeah, because they have brought great shame, and the only way to
redeem their shame
is to be tasked with doing things that end up being very suicidal. But yeah, Chief touches the whole Forerunner object thing. It causes some weird stuff to happen to him. We get other mentions, see other characters that we've seen in the games, like Halsey. Captain Keyes shows up along with Miranda.
Yeah. They're pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly an interesting decision what they do with Keyes, because it seems like instead of being full on
which Keyes?
Miranda. I mean, instead of Miranda being a full on captain, much like her father, commanding a ship, she seems more interested in learning about the Covenant and their biology and
she's a scientist.
She's scientist and military. She's military scientist kind of approach she went with, while Captain Keyes himself
full on military,
and is willing to do some shady stuff.
Which I don't know how to feel about. Then again, we didn't know much about Keyes in general.
Yeah, so the only times we get to see Keyes much, I mean, we do see a bit of him in I think the Fall Reach book, but in the games more or less he's just hey, he's the cool commander, captain of your ship, and he does cool things and gets taken over by the Flood. So
I mean, I feel like we need to talk about that at some point, but yeah. It's also confirmed in this show that Keyes and Halsey were a thing,
and that Miranda is Halsey's daughter.
Yeah, which was I asked you this earlier. Wasn't that mostly a theory?
It was. I'm pretty sure it's at the time when I was into the Halo books and getting into the lore that it was kind of a theory, not necessarily stated outright. That Miranda's mom was Halsey. Now, I'm not sure if they did eventually just confirm that theory in later books or canon and stuff like that.
Boy, that's a really tragic family line if you ask me. If you ask me, because I know. But yeah, no. Aside from that, there's clearly tensions between that family, but also there's still tensions between the Outer Rims and the UNSC, because the lone survivor was also the daughter of the head of the rebel faction of that insurrection, and they're trying to convince her, hey, let's fight together because we have a common threat. And this is for me when the show starts dipping down in quality, because I really did enjoy the show for the most half, right? And even though I've thought the Covenant girl is still very questionable, it's just that I get what this character's coming from, right? She's upset, she doesn't trust them, but the dialogue is very bad.
Yeah, because she eventually just sort of like, because Keys is like, listen, you could be someone that could help these other outer rim planets that are joining the insurrection to be like, hey, we gotta work together.
Mm-hmm.
My family, everyone I knew and loved, all got massacred by this Covenant. We gotta join forces. And she's like, I don't trust you guys. So how about instead I just tell them that you guys killed my family, I've been kidnapped, and that I want, freedom for my planet. Because that's what my dad wanted. And it's like, Rand's just like,
I'll come back to you on that.
We'll get back to you on that.
Listen, I can't promise it, but we'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
We'll see what we can do.
Because, it's a pretty, it's a big ask. Especially if she's like, hey, you guys, I don't trust you guys, so I'm just going to blackmail you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I mean,
on
yeah.
paper, not a bad idea.
But execution-wise, it just feels like, lady, you have to understand.
Yeah.
Like, you aren't really in that much of a position to, like, ask for stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I get that you've lost everyone you know and love. But, like, you gotta, like, there's a point where you have to realize that yourself...
Listen, you gotta fold. You don't got the cards to hold them, you gotta fold.
Yeah, if you ain't got no, like...
Mm-hmm.
Ace of Spades or whatever in your back pocket to like win this card game, then you gotta like fold. And
like again, I get what you're saying. Like, look, I don't trust you guys.
Mm-hmm.
How can I trust you guys to help me with to actually do what you're gonna say? Like, yeah, I get it. Join forces, but I don't trust you at all. And that would have been fine, right? But it just, the way that dialogue was saying, it was like, I'm not, I get you, but I don't trust you. And, the rest of the story becomes whether or not Chief will kill this girl.
Yeah,
and
because
the answer is no.
Yeah, because they issue an order. Let's just kill her.
Yeah.
All right.
She's not working with us. Just smother her in her sleep.
Yeah, and Chief gets the order, and it's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is a moment where like Chief talks about like, like he doesn't really ask questions about orders, he just does it, and this is sort of like the first moment where he's sort of like, interesting. Yeah,
he starts asking questions, and it's due because of the foreign artifact giving him memories of his past. Because do you want to go into that side of the story?
Well, I'll make it brief,
yes,
but in the lore, yeah, in the lore, the Spartan 2 program is basically Halsey kidnapping a bunch of kids,
replacing them with Flash clones doomed to die.
Yes, and
so that way no one would question
what happened to these kids,
mm-hmm.
right? Because obviously kidnapping them, that's going to raise some questions. So leave it.
And they don't just immediately, and sometimes they don't just immediately replace them. They take the kids, and the kids are gone for like a week or two. They find them, they don't ask questions, and then like 3 months later they're dead.
Yeah, they die of some chronic illness or something.
Some mysterious illness.
Yeah, so it's pretty unethical, especially when you're turning these kids into super soldiers.
Yeah, because like they're not even teenagers.
They're like 10 years
children.
old. They're
literal children.
Yes, yeah. And obviously, not all of them make it through the super soldier augmentations.
Well, they remember they get trained in military at a young age, and I mean military. All the physical bullshit.
I mean, it's not just that, because I mean, like the augmentations they have to do to like make them into Spartans, like sometimes it fucks people up. Like some of them get crippled,
mm-hmm.
or just straight up just die from it.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah, like if you don't die from it, you're just gonna be crippled.
yeah, and some of and there's definitely some that like in novels, like there's some that like just work at Oni, which is like the UNSC version of like the CIA or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just sort of like, yeah, I'm in a wheelchair now. It sucks.
And by the way, they're still children being augmented.
Yeah, because this stuff, I mean, that's sort of half the reason why Halsey picks them as children. One, it's easier for them to like
Be indoctrinated into the military,
and two, like their bodies are like
more likely to accept
all these modifications because they're still growing.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, these kind of modifications makes a 10-year-old look like a 20-year-old.
So yeah. I mean, if you ever watched the Forward Onto Dawn one, yeah, once Fred and Kelly like take off their helmets, they're like teenagers.
Yeah, and they're 7-foot tall teenagers.
Yeah, that's what the Spartan 2 program does to you.
Also, you're so strong that because in the lore,
Yeah,
to test out the strength of ones, they got Chief to fight 4 ODSTs who are like basically think SEAL Team 6.
yeah.
And I think it was 4 of them, right?
Yeah, the ODTs are like essentially the best of the Marines in the UNSC. So yeah, he fought like 4 of them at once, and like he like nearly killed all of them.
Yeah, I think he punched one in the heart, stopped the heart from beating, punched one in the head, crashed the skull, shattered someone's shattered something and later died, and then the other one just became crippled.
Yeah.
And this is before the armor.
Yeah, this is before the armor, which is like.
Oh, but it wasn't like under a minute or something too.
I think so. But yeah, no, that's how insane the Spartan 2 stuff is, and I mean.
Yeah, because isn't it also like going back to go with the armor? If they didn't survive the augmentation, then they have to put on the armor, and the armor is so like heavy it can crush someone inside.
Yeah, because it's like a ton.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the armor is just like weighs a ton, and that's like it's not great if you don't survive all that stuff. Like,
basically, these like it is one of the most like crazy unethical things in the Halo universe.
That's not That's not really like brought up until like Halo 4, and 5 and stuff, where they do sort of like kind of go into like. Because the opening to Halo 4 is just like some like military guy being like, Halsey, you're crazy.
You're crazy. He's like, yes, but my work has saved the universe.
Yeah,
Time and time again. Look at Chief. He saved the day.
Yeah. I mean, granted, in the lore nowadays, like like the Spartan 4 program.
Yeah, because they went all the way to 4.
Yeah, because Spartan 3s were like
they were just orphans.
Yeah, they were orphans that people the UNSC picked up that like they could like pretty much like get away with like taking off, and then
yeah, because like you don't gotta because the whole point of Spartan 3s was they're expendable.
Yeah, that was sort of the whole key for the Spartan 3 program is that they were basically expendables. And the Spartan 4s were pretty much like kind of what essentially a perfected ethical version of the Spartan 2 program, where it was military people who could suit up and train and become Spartans. I mean, one of the big characters was Buck. He became a Spartan.
And he was an ODST.
Yeah, so, like, it was people who worked through the military or could just be, like, like, they were, like, military recruits and stuff and, like, volunteered to join the Spartan 4 program. And, it was much more ethical, and obviously more people were able to survive it, the stuff.
But they were never as strong as the Spartan 2s.
No, they were never as strong as Chief, right?
Yeah.
And that's sort of like, I guess, the drawback of the Spartan 4 program is that, yes, they could do a lot of things that Spartans can do, but they were never like the Spartans.
The literal, we just build different meme.
Yeah, I guess. But anyways.
Back to the show.
And I think that this whole sort of arc of Chief, essentially like seeing these sort of memories of his childhood, which I will say, I'm not exactly 100% sure if they did do this whole memory wipe thing in the lore. Because in the show, it's definitely like Halsey basically says like, "Oh yeah, we wiped their memories." as kids and implanted false ones and stuff.
Yep. Just to add the level of unethical.
Yeah, mainly because no, I'm pretty sure it probably didn't happen in the lore because I'm remembering a Halo Legends short where the whole plot of that short is literally some of the Spartans escape, wanting to go back home,
Finding the clones.
Yeah, which brings that whole conundrum about. So yeah, no, like I'm pretty sure the Spartans kind of know what happened, but since they were young, they essentially
didn't, because there was 4 of them that escaped, and only 2 came back because I think 2 of them killed themselves.
Yeah, once realizing what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the third one just shot the clone,
and then shot himself. Yeah.
No. He's okay. Remember, because he shows up at the end of the episode.
Oh right. Yeah, he does. Yeah. That's sort of. Yeah, that's where it kind of differs. Which I guess, yeah, it definitely would make a bit more sense for Halsey to do that in this iteration. But yeah, it definitely starts to mess with Chief a little bit because he's like, "What is? I don't understand what I'm looking at. I've only been programmed to do one thing, and now I'm like." Looking at this stuff. But it leads to sort of Chief being like, nah, I'm not gonna let you die. The mission's changed.
I've changed the mission, which I'm not against because that seems like something Chief would do. Because Chief was always a character who valued people's lives. He wouldn't. He never seemed like I don't know that much of the lore as you would. He wouldn't do secret assassination attempts.
No, he's a soldier that follows orders, but sometimes he will sort of be like, nah, I gotta. There's gotta be another way to this.
I'm gonna do what's right.
Yeah, I mean,
fuck you, Del Rio.
yeah. There's obviously Halos 4 and 5 definitely show that he will sometimes just be like, nah, that ain't it. Because that whole plot point is him being like, we gotta stop the Didact, and it's like, no, we gotta go back. You're crazy, Chief. It's like, all right, I see how it is. I guess it's a solo mission now. I'm going out on my own. Screw you guys.
Okay, but hand over that AI though.
Which that would be funny if he just punched him, but no.
I mean, was it Halo follower or whatever?
Yeah.
He made a little short about that. But yeah, no, it's it's not unethical for him to do that. I'm totally down with it. He's done it before. The thing, now obviously we've been kind of tiptoeing on it being kind of a spoiler talk, but I think this is the part where we have to talk about it because it's the other elephant in the room conversation that was coming up about this show, and this is where we're gonna have to talk about it, right? The idea that they will be showing Chief's face, and towards the end of the episode, they do show his face.
Yeah.
And do you want to go? Do you want to go first?
I mean, it's in context, it's understandable why he does it. It's essentially gaining the trust of this girl who's very much like, I don't trust you, I'm gonna kill you. And it's like, this armor you can't hurt me in this armor. So he takes off the helmet. He's like, if you want to go for it, go for it. And that's sort of like, okay, I guess I can trust you, Chief. But yeah, I think the main issue I have with it, and I think this is the same issue you have with it, is that he has the helmet off for way too damn long.
Yeah, that's an issue.
Considering the context of the scene, it's like he should put that helmet back on. Because I mean, that's the thing with Chief in the games and stuff, is that for the most part, he doesn't show his face. He's always been like, the helmet stays on always. There's only been maybe 2 times in the games where he takes off his helmet. First is at the end of Halo 1, and granted the camera pans out before you can see his face. And even then, if you mod the game to like try to like see what it is, it's kind of funny because he takes off the helmet only to reveal another helmet.
such a meme ability. And I think the other one you're talking about is in Halo 4.
Yeah, if you beat the game on the legendary difficulty, which is the highest difficulty in Halo, you get the ending shot of Chief taking off his armor. Instead of it being cutting to black as soon as the helmet comes off, you do get to see like a bit of his face.
And I remember people were so pissed, but if you were like reading the lore, then you know that he was always kind of this. You already knew how he looked like.
Yeah, because the books does explain like at least what he looks like, and he is just kind of just generic white guy.
Yeah, but that wasn't like and like it's not. And some people will be like, oh, that's so boring, but that's kind of the point though. like Chief is like is meant to be like, you know, in the games he's meant to be more of like a character insert. Like you're the one playing Chief.
Yeah, you are the Master Chief.
Yeah.
And you know,
so him being like you know standard white guy is like just yeah.
And I guess I think half the reason why they did that for Halo 4 is that for the most part like 4 and 5 and I think probably Infinite do sort of go into more about just Chief being a person.
Well, yeah, that's kind of the reason why I like 4 more than 5.
Yeah, because it's just like. You know, it's Chief sort of learning to stop being as much of essentially just a walking tank with, you know.
Yeah, it's the first time where he has to be emotional.
Yeah.
From the perspective of the games, because the whole point of the game is that Cortana, his like AI friend, is dying.
Yeah, and he's sort of pretty much like, no, we're gonna get back home. Halsey's gonna fix you. Everything's gonna be fine.
Which can I say, looking back at that, the voice acting and the body language really does that scene justice.
Yeah, like
because there's a moment where you were like you don't see his face, but his body movement is like, wait, what? Kind of a situation.
Yeah, he you can tell from his body language that he's very much in distraught of potentially losing Cortana and stuff, and. Yeah, no, and I think that's what you could do. I mean, here's the thing: we already see there's already a show out there that has its main character with a mask on for most of the runtime, and only has that character remove it under very specific circumstances to allow for greater emotional weight. And it's The Mandalorian.
And a lot of people are comparing it to that show, even though there's technically different things.
Yeah, definitely because those two shows are vastly different in terms of tone. Because Halo is definitely setting itself up to be a sort of a grand space sci-fi kind of adventure. While Mandalorian draws heavily from like westerns and like mixing that with the Star Wars setting, more or less. So they're two different shows with different tones. But they both have this one very like noticeable trait between them, and I feel like the Halo show should definitely have looked at Mandalorian in terms of how to do Master Chief. Like I'm not 100% against Chief without his helmet on.
No, I'm not either.
Because that's probably just gonna have to happen eventually in a live action setting.
And he doesn't have that rule that Mando has.
Yeah, he doesn't have Mando has like an in-universe rule of like I can't take the helmet off. That's my one rule. And
he's broken it a couple times and it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense in the context, and even then like it's not for very long either. Chief, like he doesn't have this one. It's like more of a unstated rule, and it's an unwritten rule.
It's an unwritten law.
Yeah, for Halo fans that Chief never takes the helmet off. Because he's always like, for him that's like who he is. Like he always is ready to go with the helmet on.
And like I think the reason they did it in the first episode was because just to say, guys, we're doing our own thing. See, we're showing his face, which I'm not against. I'm with you. I'm not against. But it just feels like so wrong at the same time, right? Because like when I was watching it, I was like, I'm okay, I'm fine with this. You know, I liked it at first. You know, it's starting to slow down about liking, and then when that happened, I'm like, it just doesn't feel, you know, I guess earned. Like the situation makes sense, but it doesn't feel earned.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you feel about that, but I mean, hopefully we don't get it as too much as um, they later did in Mandalorian, right? Because you if you remember my thoughts on the second season was like that one episode with Bill Burr's character. While I understand he took off the mask, I didn't need to see his face all the time, where it was like cutting back and forth to his face. I didn't need that.
Right.
And here it's that same thing. Like I don't mind if you show me his face, just don't show it to me all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that point I start to like lose interest and like it's very distracting for me. And I know it can be very distracting for other people. I think it's better if you take off the mask from his face and like don't show his face again. Like use camera trickery.
Or just like have him put the helmet back on.
Yeah. Just put it back on. Like the Mando scene made sense, but I just didn't like how you kept cutting back to his face.
Mm-hmm.
That, or like when we had to see him cry, when he has to say bye to Grogu.
Yeah.
Like that was fine,
Mm-hmm.
and it made sense. Here it's, but I guess that's our end of the show because the end of our discussion for the show, because you know they eventually escape and fly off.
Yeah.
And I don't know where.
Well, I mean, it's very much sort of like a
Mm-hmm.
where you know, it's very much sort of leaving us at okay, this show is going into different directions.
Mm-hmm.
And what are those directions going to be?
Mm-hmm. And and I am interested to see where it goes because like it's an interesting take, and but it's also like okay, but what but like where can we go, right? And there's a lot of stuff that they talk about that kind of indicates where they could go because Reach they talk about Reach and Reach has yet to fall.
Yeah, which in the lore, Halo 1 takes place immediately, like pretty much like a week or two after the fall of Reach, which is a huge sort of big event in the in the hell the fall of Reach novel is pretty much more or less focuses on that. Halo Reach is like pretty much a like boots on the ground, like you get to see what happens with Reach and like sort of the you know, just like
the impending doom.
Yeah, because you know, if you're definitely into the Halo lore, you know that Reach is gonna fall. He cannot be saved, and you're just playing as these characters, and you're sort of like left to know that okay, this isn't gonna end well for any of us or any of these characters that will come to be around with. So yeah, the you know Reach hasn't fallen yet, which is like definitely one of the big moments for in Halo lore. So I mean, could we see the end, like the fall of Reach, as sort of like this big climactic finish for the season?
Probably not.
I mean, it's a maybe for me. I mean, I don't think so because I think it's only like 9 episodes for this first season.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's probably yeah, maybe a tease that Reach will fall.
Yeah.
Because I think the main reason why it's such a big deal for in the Halo lore is that Reach is like one of the inner colonies in the UNSC. Because for the most part, before that, like planets like Harvest and all these other stuff or Outer Rim worlds that get attacked, which is like okay,
we're holding them off at bay.
Yeah, but once they get to Reach, that's pretty much like knocking at the door of Earth. Because Earth, I mean, granted, it's not that close to Reach, but it's pretty much like you're knocking on Earth's door when Reach falls, and it's one of the biggest inner planets.
It is like, isn't it bigger than Jupiter?
I mean, well, I don't know how in terms of size. I mean more in terms of importance.
Yeah.
Like,
But no, I'm just saying like in the scope of like because this is a colony, they do stuff with it. They lose they lose a big colony, like the biggest colony they have.
yeah. So, and to know that they're like the Covenant are essentially like on knocking on Earth's doorstep, essentially.
It's like
Oh, then this is bad. This is real bad.
it's like if like we were getting in like if New York got invaded now, or other things that are going on right now.
I mean, yeah, it's if yeah, I would liken it to like a big major Western city getting invaded by aliens.
Mm-hmm.
It's like wow, okay, that's bad. That's real bad.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably like what Reach represents.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, if they because they're obviously leading up to finding a Halo ring.
Yeah, I mean the show is very much like, clearly is like saying like we need to find the Halo and win the war,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. That's like one of the big lines from the trailers. So, I mean, maybe we find a Halo ring because I mean we do know that it is getting a second season.
Mm-hmm.
So potentially, if the show ends with like Chief and finding the Halo ring, maybe the second season just follows them exploring the ring and like learning, oh shit, this is bad. We have to stop the Covenant from firing this thing.
Also, a fourth threat.
Right? Yeah, the Flood. Yeah, which that would be super interesting because
Yeah, because once you talk about the flood, you talk about like an eldritch horror.
yeah, it's just like this existential threat that harms the entire galaxy
Mm-hmm.
because they feed off of its sentient life, and that's the reason why the Halo rings were built.
Mm-hmm.
To kill off all sentient life and thus kill off the Flood.
Yeah. And hopefully, who knows, we might even get there. And by the way, if you've never seen a Halo thing, congratulations, you are learning a lot of the lore, and it's a very deep lore.
Yeah, Halo lore definitely goes in deep. The books definitely expand on a lot of that stuff, especially later books expanding on the Forerunners and that whole thing about like them having to fight the Flood. Like there is like tons.
The games only scratch the surface.
Yeah, that's sort of the thing. I mean, I know that in Halo 3 there were like these terminals that definitely delve a bit into the lore of Halo a little bit.
Mm-hmm. They tease the Didac and the Librarian.
Yeah, like they tease a lot of stuff that happens in later Halo games and stuff. And obviously, the books, while I wouldn't say, at least during the Bungie era of Halo, like the books were necessary to read.
Mm-hmm.
But it very much was like, it's all connected. It's not like what happened with Star Wars and the Legends and stuff.
Yeah.
Where Disney decided just to nuke the Legends, all the Star Wars like
Mm-hmm.
expanded universe stuff and turn it into Legends.
Mm-hmm.
This is very much of everything's connected, and you can read this stuff and learn a bit more about the Halo universe that's beyond the games.
Yeah. Because, I mean, like, most of the stuff that we talked about was probably just from one book.
Yeah.
It was Reach.
Yeah.
Fall of Reach.
Yeah, Fall of Reach definitely. Like I said, it's essentially it serves as before Halo Reach. It served as a major prequel to the games.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no. This first episode is interesting.
I can't say I hate it because I did think that there are some strong things in it. I do kind of wish one thing, they start using Marty's song music.
Right, just more. Yeah, I guess.
Because part of what made Halo Halo is the music.
Yeah, and we get teases of the Halo theme.
Mm-hmm.
But the opening doesn't really have like
No, that's a weird ass opening, dude.
Yeah, it doesn't have like the Halo theme. It just teases a little bit and then just goes into something else.
They should have just used the Warthog theme.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's I don't know. It's interesting. Yeah. That's all I gotta say. That's sort of the.
I feel like we could come back to this, depending on like how it goes. Maybe we'll check the second episode, and maybe that will like, because a lot of people that I've heard who have seen the first two episodes, right, say that the second episode puts it in a better direction than the first. Like, the first was just an introduction. Second one is where the story really starts kicking in. Like people are where there's still a bit more of a story going on.
Okay.
And again, well, we don't know. All I know is that next week we're going to be talking about Moon Knight.
Okay.
So, well, I mean, we'll be good.
Yeah.
But we'll see on the Halo. Hopefully, it doesn't end up like Cowboy Bebop, which is like just really, really weird and not being Cowboy Bebop.
Right.
Because, like, I don't know, for you, do you feel like it still has some Halo in there?
I feel like it does, because it does a lot of things that I think, at least I think, sort of sticks a little bit to Halo. Yeah. Mainly just how the Covenant, how we're first introduced to them, being this sort of overwhelming threat for regular humans and stuff, which is a thing for the Halo lore, right? Like, the Covenant have always been sort of like, basically, like, unless you're a Spartan, like, the Covenant have always been, like, super dangerous, almighty threatening. I mean, like, in terms of the lore, like humanity has had, like, such a huge problem fighting the Covenant. Like, they can glass planets from the sky. Like, they would lose major battles. Like, they could win, like, infantry and battles just by throwing a bunch of troops into battle, but like space fights were just like you were getting screwed. But yeah, I do like that we get to see the Covenant as this overwhelming force. The CGI holds up, I think, at sometimes, but there's other moments where like, okay, that's clearly green screen. They're not using any of the technology that the Mandalorian has in terms of how they approach green screen and stuff like that.
I think the best one is the Prophets.
Yeah, the Prophets do look good. I mean, the armor for the Elites looks a little weird to me, but I can live with it. The Elites have always been having weird armor choices in the past couple of games.
Yeah.
So it's whatever. I mean, I like how one of them says wart wart wart. You know.
Yeah, they do. They really do.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, I sure, I might not care for the first-person perspective shots to be like, hey, this is a first-person shooter game. Let's do some of that stuff. So at least for me, it's very much of a, you know, at least the War one's funny. Because, you know, it's clearly like a thing.
Yeah. And, well, I guess that's what we'll end the episode. I don't want to give it a rating because, like, it's still too early for me to get my full thoughts on the show. There was a lot for us to talk on the first episode, especially coming from like the perspective of fans, right? And I feel like that's a very important thing to look at. Hopefully they do this show justice. I want them to do the show justice, dude. I want people to know like how nuts the Halo world is. Like we talked about like the fucked up shit that happens with like the Spartans. Wait till you see the fucked up shit that happened with the Forerunners.
Yeah, like, the Halo universe is so wide and so expansive that you can tell a lot of stories about it. So, I mean, like, the Halo show could have been about anything. I know a lot of people, I heard online that it'd be cool if they did, like, sort of a Band of Brothers style kind of show where it's, like, a group of Marines having to go through certain events during the Halo universe, you know, and Chief would be sort of a background character or stuff like that. Like, there's different ways of like doing like I guess a Halo show, and I think one of the great examples of that is the Halo Legends, sort of these 7 animated shorts.
6 of them are supposedly canon.
Yeah, 6 of them are canon, more or less, with the last one being sort of a non-canon, like, funny, dumb thing.
Yeah.
And they all tell different stories within the Halo universe, and they're all very
By the way,
interesting.
it's anime.
Yeah, it's definitely anime. This was very much in line with, like, say, the Animatrix, you know. But yeah, like
God, there were so many good episodes.
Yeah, I liked all of them. Yeah.
The babysitter.
Yeah.
What's
The package.
package?
Well, wait, no, it's not the package. Not the package.
Prototype.
Prototype is what I meant. The package is the 3D one.
That one was weird.
That one's definitely weird. I mean, it's fun to watch, but like, it messes with my brain too much in terms of lore. Like, Halsey is shown as like blonde, hot woman, but she's like supposed to be old.
It's very Appleseed.
It's. I mean, I don't really know. It's weird. But then Chief has a dual.
Well, you've never seen Appleseed. I've seen Appleseed. It's Appleseed.
Okay, but point is, Chief has a sword, energy sword duel with his elite towards the end, and it's pretty cool.
We thought it was the Arbiter, but it's not the Arbiter.
No, it's not the Arbiter. Like, it would have been really freaking cool if it was the Arbiter, though. Like, before he became the Arbiter, like, they had this grand matchup before.
1,000 hells awaits you.
Yeah, like, goddamn it. Like,
It was so good.
obviously, the Odd One Out, probably one of the best.
That's the non-canon one.
It's a non-canon one. It's done by the studio that makes Dragon Ball, and you can tell.
Oh, you can tell.
You can tell.
You can definitely tell.
But yeah, like, Halo Legends is definitely a prime example of like being able to do that. Obviously, the novels as well.
Yeah.
They tell different stories in the Halo universe. So there's a lot of directions that the Halo show could have gone. Mm-hmm. And the fact that it's basically its own thing, like, it's not a direct adaptation of any of the Halo media,
really isn't that much of an offense.
Like, I don't think it's that much of an offense.
Yeah.
I understand that some people are kind of miffed about that. I just hope it doesn't turn into, like... I'm just hoping that it's not just some excuse for the writers to be like... to, like, just fall on when people start criticizing the show for things. It's like, oh, you don't like it just because it's different from the games. Like no, it's... some of these things we don't like is because it's just bad writing. Mm-hmm. You know, I hope they don't do that. Yeah. But, I mean, I don't know.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Like I said, we'll hopefully continue watching this. If you do enjoy what you heard, you can follow us on all these social media sites, Apple, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We are most active on Instagram at the Geek Centurions. You'll find a link tree to all our podcasts that we're officially part of, like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pandora, Spotify, all that good stuff. And you'll find a link to the YouTube for all you audio listeners out there. You can put a face to the voice. And we have a Patreon that you can use to support us in any form of way. And yeah, that's about it. Halo's... It's weird. Hopefully it'll get good. Yeah, but you know what? Moon Knight, next week. There you go. Anyways, guys, it's been me, your boy Eli.
You mean Joe.
You guys have a good one. Peace.